Okay, Adnan, start.
Okay, well, good afternoon to you all, wherever you are. My name is Adnan Amkan Beno, and I am the Director for MC Academy for International Legal Studies, which is an independent and not-for-profit organization. Now, I'm delighted to welcome you all to this very timely and topical webinar, one of many of MC Academy's activities and initiatives. Our activities are actually predicated upon the firm belief, the one which you see behind me, the genesis of any reality we create lies in our imagination. And we are going to discuss a topic which the genesis of which has actually comes from our imagination, and that is technology. Now, if you wish to know more about what we do at MC Academy, please spare a minute or two and visit our website at www.mc-academy.org. Now, I'm sure that you're all eager, as I am, to move on to why we are here, technology, innovation, and the law. And in the context of this vast and fast-moving and unpredictable phenomenon, today's webinar has been aptly entitled the Digital Shakeup of the Law as we know it. As you will find out later today at the end of this webinar, there are no many qualified people to discuss this topic than our esteemed members of the panel. Now, today's webinar will also be moderated by Dr. Carsten Reimann. Carsten is a veteran, and he oversees the activities of the Innovation and Technology in Legal Services cluster here at the MC Academy. Now, I think without further ado, I invite Carsten to lead us through this very exciting and unpredictable adventure. Carsten, it's over to you. Carsten, did you get that?
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Adnan, for the introduction. Hello, everybody. I'm very delighted to have such a great expert panel here. We are live in 3 continents, which I think is some wonderful technological thing as well, even if it doesn't involve artificial intelligence yet. We have people here from Toronto, Canada, from Belgium, France, Germany, South Africa, people listening in from Brazil, Mexico, and I think some from the US as well. That's what we can see for now. So fingers crossed that technology will make this possible until the end. What we're going to do today is what I would call in the film industry, you would call it a trailer or a pilot film. So basically, this is the first very broad international live webinar on legal tech and beyond, as we like to call it. The purpose is to set, basically to outline the topics so we can go into each particular topics later on during the year. We are planning to have altogether 4 to 6, depends a bit on the timing, 4 to 6 webinars this year and 2 workshops in Brussels. And today is basically the big opening, I would say. I won't tell much myself in advance. As Adnan mentioned, I'm a veteran. I'm following this topic for 25 years now. Actually, Adnan and we met 1992 in Edinburgh, at Edinburgh University, where he was my supervisor. At the time, I was studying law, but also jurisprudence. And in jurisprudence, we thought about, what can you do with technology in the law? Automate the law, creating expert systems. And I remember back, we had a seminar, actually a 4-people seminar, very small, smaller than the group we are today, doing a very little expert system on some, I would call it primitive technology at the time. That was the time when email came up. Those of you who remember when email came up. And the other guy in the room was somebody very famous today in the scene community, was Richard Susskind. So he just written his book on expert systems, the first one. So this is basically, I would say, with hindsight, where it all started. So we've moved a long way from there. What I realize, I'm a headhunter now most of my time, but this is basically my great passion, the legal tech thing. What I realized in the last 3 years is that the speed technology is moving on and new things are entering or coming closer to market is rapidly increasing. So therefore, I'm very thankful to have experts from different countries today. What we're going to do is I will introduce each of our 4 speakers very shortly, quickly, and then ask each speaker to give us a short statement or summary on 3 points. The first point is what he or she is currently doing in legal tech or innovation, then why he or she is doing this, what's the personal story, the personal motivation driving people to do this, and thirdly, which opportunities they see by this rapidly evolving technology approach, what we call the digital shake-up, for lawyers, for corporates, for companies, and for law firms. So that's, I think, the 3 groups most interested in these developments. Okay, let's start with Mr. Hersh Perlis. Hersh, you are director of the, is he still there? I just lost his picture. Is he still there?
Can you, Hersh, please switch on your camera?
It should be on.
Ah, there he is. Hersh, you're the director of Legal Innovation Zone in Toronto. And this is a young venture, started about 3.5 years ago. Which I think is quite unique. You're one of the first, the early birds, the first movers in the world, I would say. Would you give us a bit of the background, what Legal Innovation Zone does, and actually why you started it and how you started it?
Yeah, so thank you very much. And I'd like to thank MC Academy for asking me to speak, and obviously thank Professor Adnan and Sana for having me here. So thank you very much. This is very exciting and a truly international crowd, so that's great. Yeah, why don't I just start about what the Legal Innovation Zone is. So what we are is, as you mentioned, just under 3 years ago, we launched what at the time when we announced it 2.5 years ago, we said was Canada's first legal tech incubator. And then about 6 months later, we started calling it North America's first legal tech incubator. And then about a year after that, we started calling it the world's first legal tech incubator. And so far, no one's corrected us. So what we did is we're focused on building better legal solutions for the consumers of legal technology, for the consumers of legal services. And so we do that in 3 main ways. One is our main incubator. So we have a space where startups come and develop their ideas, and we don't focus on one key area. So some of the startups are active selling their products to law firms. Some of them are selling them direct to consumers. Some of them are very focused on big law. Some of them are focused on access to justice issues. And we currently have 19 different startups working out of our space. And they have sales, I think it's basically, some of the companies have sales on every single continent except for Antarctica. So pretty advanced so far. The other thing we focused on is working with law firms and legal organizations on their innovation agendas. So as many of us know, law firms aren't always the greatest places to be working on their innovation agenda. And so we've partnered with a number of different people, specifically on different projects. And it could be from training their lawyers of what legal innovation is and different innovative practices. It could be as simple as building different apps. It really depends on who the partners are. And the final thing we do is what we cheekily call designing and developing the 21st century justice system. And that's our way to bring community members together on different A to J issues and to see if they could come up with better solutions. And it's very much the less traditional. So obviously we have the traditional lawyers and the judges that come into the room, but we also try and bring techies, developers, consumers, business people all together to try and solve different societal issues around access to justice. And our main focus is on, so recently has been on family law, families going through the separation process. And really, you know, why we're doing this and how I got involved, because I'm unique in the sense that I'm not a lawyer, and frankly, I'm not a technologist. I have an entrepreneurial background. I have a philanthropic background, and you know, when my co-founder Chris Bentley was looking to set this up, he gave me a call and see if I'd help start it up with him. What drove me to this area is it doesn't take a lawyer or frankly a consumer of law to realize that it's a sector in desperate need of innovation and technology. And what we say here is you don't need a Gatesian idea to make a very big impact on the delivery of legal services. And so, frankly, with that topic of low-hanging fruit and the ability to start something up that's never been started before, I was drawn to this, and that's sort of how I ended up here. And obviously, to make a change, access to justice can really benefit from some of these innovations and technologies. And when we talk about legal innovation, lots of our companies use technology, lots of our startups use technology, and some advanced technology, blockchain and AI and whatnot, automation. But sometimes, especially in the law, it doesn't always have to be technology that drives the innovation. It could be business practices as well. So we're focused on all that. And I know I was supposed to touch on key opportunities that we see in the digital shakeup, lawyers, corporations, law firms, and all that. And I think I would talk about the legal market and the opportunities that are out there. And so we just had, just this week, we had Mark Cohen from Legal Mosaic. He writes a lot of articles in Forbes, was in our office doing a few events. And he talked about the international legal market being a $1 trillion market. And he spoke about this $1 trillion market like that was an impressive thing. And I have a heck of a lot of respect for Mark. But when you're talking about a population of 7.6 billion people on this planet, and thinking about what the legal spend or the potential legal spend of every person, here at the Legal Innovation Zone, most of the time we're focused on that 1 trillion, sure, but we're also focused on the untapped legal market, which far exceeds that $1 trillion. And when I was speaking to this group of students a few months ago, we were talking about that pie of in Canada, we have, the numbers are 93% of small and medium-sized enterprises do not use a lawyer for contracts. I think almost across the world, there's anywhere from 60 to 80% of people going through a separation do not use a lawyer and go into the courts unrepresented. And you could go on and on about those different stats. And so we use those stats to point to the untapped legal market. And instantly someone raised his hands and said, that's snake oil. You're selling a snake oil. Those people, you know, it's not an untapped market because they don't have the money to spend. They don't have the $30,000 to go through a divorce. And those companies don't have the, you know, money to spend on a lawyer for $300, $500, $700 an hour. And that's when I bring in I'll just unplug the iPhone. And, you know, 10 years ago when the iPhone came out, it was impressive because they had this camera. And I guarantee you, when Steve Jobs went to his developers and said, I want a camera in every single iPhone, I promise you the developers probably said, what are you talking about? It's going to take up 10% of the device. It's going to take up, you know, 20% of the battery when you're using it. And they probably pointed to the market and they said, out in the market, only 5% of people walk around with cameras. So why in the world would we want to put a camera in every single device? And the startups and my colleagues at the Legal Innovation Zone always laugh at me and they say, I want to see pictures of you in university and high school. And I say, thank God, no one had a camera back then. So those are the same people that would point to the legal tech market and say, snake oil, you're selling a snake oil, you know, it's a 1 trillion market. That other market, you can't access that market. And they don't want to be accessed or else they'd be part of this market. And today, I guarantee every single person on this call right now, on this video chat, is within arm's reach of a camera. And so just 10 years later, basically, you know, I don't know what the number is, 80% of people, that's probably higher in the Western world, are within arm's reach of a camera, basically 24 hours a day. And so when people talk about the legal market, Many of our teams are focused on the legal market that is here to the big law and to the enterprises and to the in-house counsel. But often at the Legal Innovation Zone, we're pointing to the greater market. And that's what technology and innovation are able to achieve. You're able to reach people in a totally different way. Lawyers are able to, we want lawyers to make a lot of money. And lawyers using automation are able to drastically reduce the cost of their services, not because they're not nearly as worthwhile, but because they're able to reach so many more people that at drastically reduced costs. I'm not saying anything that isn't obvious. They're able to make still a very, very healthy living. So I don't know if you want me to keep on going. We do a lot of work around AI, around automation. We just launched an artificial intelligence challenge with the Ontario government. We have 6 teams that just moved in. So happy to talk about anything, but I'll step aside and let other people talk now.
Yeah, just to sum up, Hirsch, how have you started Legal Innovation Zone itself? And would you like to share at least some outline, one example of a project? So that we have more concrete examples for people to listen to.
Sorry. So the Legal Innovation Zone, we're born out of Ryerson University here in Toronto. Ryerson University, currently, I believe they get more applications than any university in the country. When I went to university, not too long ago, but a decent time ago, I would hopefully no one from Ryerson is listening. I didn't know anyone that considered going to Ryerson University. And the big change that Ryerson made is they had a huge focus on innovation and entrepreneurship. And so their business school is now #1 application. The school in general is #1 application. So what drove that change, one of the things that drove that change is what's called the Digital Media Zone, the DMZ. And that's a university business incubator. 2 years ago, they were ranked the #3 university business incubator in the world, #1 in North America. So very, very successful. And so Chris Bentley, when he left his previous job as Attorney General, he came to Ryerson, didn't know what he was going to do. They actually just gave him an office in the DMZ. And the DMZ, for just so people understand how big it is, they have 80 companies, close to 500 entrepreneurs working in 5 floors in this building. And he went out to the executive director and he said, how many of those companies are doing anything in legal tech? And the answer was none. And so he went to the president and said, we're going to set up this Legal Innovation Zone. And the president asked what it was. Chris had no clue. He's like, oh, and the president was a genius. And he said, go for it. And so that's how we got started. We said there's a need for legal tech. No one in the city or in the DMZ was doing anything around legal tech. So we got started and didn't know if we'd be able to fill our space. And within 3 months, we had to double our capacity. And as I said, we have 19 companies now. Unfortunately, we can't currently accept any more because we just have no space. And those companies, really, they focus on, we'll accept companies at any stage because we're so unique. So whether from ideation to incubation. So the last 2 companies that we accepted, one was a woman just had an idea about creating an empathetic bot to document sexual abuse. Just an idea, and we accepted her. The other company, the same day that we accepted, was a successful blockchain company, a serial entrepreneur. It's his 3rd company. They already have a proven product. We accepted them as well. So we'll accept people on throughout the spectrum. And examples of the companies, those are 2 examples. We have a great AI company doing document analysis called Diligent. And we have another great company called Codify Legal Publishing. They literally track every single legislative change in the country instantly, which, librarians, large law firms probably have an entire army of librarians trying to document that. And so we had the current Attorney General in here, and he asked, so how long does it take you to do that? And he's a team of 3 people with basically 14 computers set up. And he said within 24 hours, we have every single legislation across the country updated. So it could be as advanced as that and as simple as a company called Legal Swipe that when people get pulled over, it was started by a young Black lawyer who knows his rights, but he knew all of his friends didn't. And so when they get pulled over, they're able to pull up this app called Legal Swipe, and they quickly learn what their rights are and aren't when it comes to criminal matters. So there's really a lot of innovation going on here.
Thank you very much, Hirsch. Perfect. Let's move then to Nerushka Bowen in Johannesburg in South Africa. Nerushka, can you unmute yourself, or can we unmute her? Maybe, yeah. Nerushka, you've been a lawyer in big law firms, like I was a long time ago, and you specialized then in technology and IP law. And then quite recently you decided to go on and specialize in emerging technology. Now you're very much into AI, into Bitcoin, and all the new topics, I would call them. Can you tell us a bit about how this change happened and what you're doing now currently?
Thanks, Carsten. Sure. So, I mean, as Carsten says, I am from a big law environment, and I worked many years as a technology and privacy lawyer. And while doing that, over the years, we started thinking, we need to do things a little bit differently. And we came up upon this idea, let's look at products and let's look at product development. And we started down this journey, particularly around the area of privacy law. How could we do things a little bit differently? And while going down that journey, we started upskilling ourselves as a team and in building a product for the privacy market locally. And what happened during that 2 to 3 year period, we just learned so much about legal tech and innovation that it opened up my eyes personally to this tremendous opportunity in this space and how much could actually be going on across every single area of law, across every jurisdiction, and how little was actually being done. And as a result of seeing all of that opportunity, at the moment I'm actually focusing on professional speaking in the space. So I do a lot of emerging tech law. So that's your future-looking law. The current trending topics, of course, are things like cryptocurrency and blockchain, which I'm doing quite a lot there. Also other tech and privacy type stuff, and also speak a lot about the future of law, especially to corporates and lawyers, to kind of create that education and awareness in the space. Because we are seeing, I guess, pockets of innovation when it comes to the change in legal practice, but it is really pockets, and there's still a huge room for growth for us to see a bit more of dramatic change, and for lawyers to actually start understanding technology and the opportunities and potentials there. And I mean, as we all know, because of the lack of education and awareness, people are not aware of what can change. And so I am trying to bridge that gap between the tech people and the legal fraternity. And another thing was that, change or large dramatic change is not going to come from one person doing one thing, but it's going to happen when lots and lots and lots of people all over the space start doing a lot of little things. And that's why I'm trying to inspire change, especially amongst the younger lawyers, and as well as law firm and corporates, to start doing things a little bit differently. And in terms of what opportunities are there now, I think there is incredible opportunity to be a lawyer today. There's going to be new paths, new career opportunities, in addition to traditional structures and systems that we are starting to see emerge. I mean, already we have alternatives like knowledge lawyers, legal project managers. We're seeing a rise in things like legal process outsourcing specialists, and then moving on to more things like product developers, people who actually understand tech to a greater extent embedded back into the legal environment, as well as the rise of what they call the legal engineer. And we really need to start educating these people with a passion and know-how and capacity to become these lawyers of the future. I think when it comes to corporates, technology has definitely the potential to create huge efficiencies, cost savings, in certain areas through processes like automation and commoditization. And this is especially relevant for in-house counsel at corporates who have to work within budgets which are becoming tighter year on year, increasing pressure from within the organizations to save costs. And we really see a lot of drive when it comes to adoption of things like legal tech from the corporate sector or the client sector, rather than from traditional law firms and lawyers. But I think law firms themselves as well have to make a decision, basically, whether they will sit back and continue to operate the traditional model, or whether they will take initiative and start to lead the way into the future of legal practice. Because we have already seen numerous examples where non-legal people are entering the legal tech space, disrupting the practice of law, because it's not happening within the legal fraternity quick enough. And ultimately, if lawyers and law firms don't take ownership now of the practice of law, it is only a matter of time between it is taken over by somebody else. And I mean, by the time somebody like a Google or Amazon turns their attention to law, then we're already too late, because you can't compete with those type of technology resources. So now really is the time to really educate lawyers and upskill, and use this opportunity to spread that awareness as far as possible, so we can create and build the future generation with a skill set that's not going to become outdated in the next few years. Thanks.
Okay. Are we on? Okay. There, no, micro. Okay. So thank you very much, Nirushka. Would you like to give us some insights? Also, you're based in South Africa. I was there 2 years ago, actually, and my impression was, I've seen the legal tech shows in the US. I'm German myself, so I'm I have a bit of a feeling being in countries with different speeds regarding legal technology. So how would you describe the mood or the state of affairs in South Africa as regards digital applications, technology in the legal field? You talked about upskilling lawyers, you talked about taking ownership now, so there's a time element in what you say. You will also look around globally as the small community does normally. What is your perception there in South Africa? How would you describe where South Africa is now as regards the legal market?
So I think it is a relatively new concept in the South African market. Again, we have seen pockets of innovation, and again, it's quite isolated, where maybe a law firm, develops an app or an product, through particular teams, but we haven't seen that widespread kind of adoption in the market that we should need to see. But also, I should say, in the last 6 months, awareness has risen a little bit. We're starting to now get events themed around these type of topics, whereas in the past we didn't have any events, around of this nature. So, there's definitely growth that's happening, and I see 2018 will probably be quite a exponential growth phase for this market. And maybe we might even see some interest from international legal tech service providers who don't have a presence yet in the local market. We already have a few legal tech startups, some e-commerce type platforms, some Uber for lawyers type models. Again, some of these startups have been created by non-lawyers who see the opportunity from the outside into the market and have tried to take advantage of that. We don't have any kind of university courses or anything like that yet, in terms of skill development, but hopefully this is also a trend we should see in the coming months and across the year in the local market.
Thank you very much. Very interesting and on time. I'm very pleased. Joanna, you're smiling at me. Joanna is a professional writer and journalist from the UK. I would say you're almost a celebrity. I think you're writing for the Guardian and national newspapers there. So normally you're the one interviewing people. Now it's the other way around, right? So sorry to pick your brain today, but you volunteered, so it's too late now. Yes. Would you like to give us a bit of a flavor why you're actually interested? I mean, you wrote books on a couple of very interesting topics I've seen, from all kinds of people's stories, I would call them now lately, to legal technology and innovation. You've done a book. I'm very excited about the second revised version of your book, Robots in Law, about how artificial intelligence is transforming legal services. So can you give us a bit of a background? Why are you so interested in all this chatbot stuff?
Well, you asked sort of what I'm doing in the field of legal technology, and the thing is, I don't do actually very much. I commentate on it. So I'm a journalist and I'm an author. So I don't sell or buy technology. But I guess I'm a bit of an evangelist because my book, Robots in Law, charted the process of AI in legal services. At the moment, the second edition is because the pace has slowed because the market is catching up. So there isn't another book in it, but there are things that have happened, and I think that I need to update and document some of them. So why legal technology and innovation for me, who is not a lawyer? I'm a writer and a bit of a technologist, but my only interest in law is writing about the sector. So legal technology and innovation are a confluence for me of two long-standing topics and interests that I write about. I'm the IT columnist for the Law Society Gazette, so every month I write a feature about technology's impact on law firms and lawyers. My readership is lawyers, so it's not techies, but it's the people who are directly affected by all these changes. Then I also write for The Guardian and The Times. I'm a freelance writer. I do a lot of tech writing for The Guardian, and I write about emerging tech. So that's things like AI and virtual reality, augmented reality, stuff about phones like Harsh was talking about, why we're messaging and using different platforms and ways of communicating, which again comes to the chatbots and things like BillyBot. It's all about engagement and communication. So that's where the confluence lies. So when I write for the Gazette, I write about new developments to flag things up for people who may not have heard about them and how they might affect their professional lives and their personal normal lives as well. And I would also look at events if I hear something that's interesting or there's even an exciting new product that can sometimes would flag something up. But I'm not actually attached to any products or any law firms, so that's another point. Why did I write my book? Well, I started writing about AI about 4 years ago. And when I touched legal, when I wrote about it for general publications, everybody was interested. But when I wrote about it for law, I got a lot of kickback. I got some quite nasty stuff on social media saying this is rubbish and is she trying to write clickbait for lawyers and stuff like that. And I thought I'd rattled a few boxes. So people were upset about it, so time to write more. Because it was interesting. And the other thing is, not everyone knew about it. So I was sharing some brand new stuff with a market that could benefit from it. So that's where I was coming from there. So it was a little bit of evangelism, a little bit of information. And I guess I'd been riling people without meaning to, and I wondered what they were all so upset about. And mostly they were upset because they didn't know what it was that was possibly threatening their jobs. And some of the media didn't help. They were like, oh, robots are coming to take your job. Well, you know, as I've said in other forums, I'm online all the time. I'm a tech writer. And the internet hasn't even worked out that I'm a girl yet, so I don't think it's going to be a lawyer. So, so that was the other thing. Now, when it comes to disruption and innovation, I've been covering law tech now for 10 years, and it's been talking about transformation and disruption the whole time. So it's a very slow disruption. It's not a revolution. It's been talking about innovation for 5 years, maybe. I think that started maybe after law firms emerged rather bruised from the recession, with clients asking for more for less, and technology taking off with the internet and cloud computing all becoming more accessible. So that was perhaps the driver. I also have a position of independence. There's not that many women especially who commentate on this, who are not attached to a product or perhaps an events organizer or something like that. I'm not after, you know, it's not my profession to be selling stuff into law. I'm paid by the publications. So there was a need for more independent voices. What key opportunities? Well, I think the opportunities are pretty great for lawyers, because it gives them a chance to work more productively for their clients and them. It's also an opportunity for making money, again, as both previous speakers have mentioned. So, developing services like the Magic Circle, developing more services to sell even more to their clients who are already paying them. And also super stuff that is broadening access to legal services, and also to tools and automation. So the chatbots mean you can quickly get to things, and without going through a long process. They automate client inception, but they also put a bit of a friendly face on it so that people don't feel worried. Perhaps it's going to help the unlawyered. Perhaps it's just going to make it easier for normal people to understand their legal rights, as Hirsch was mentioning with the legal swipe, was it? So those are some of the things. For smaller law firms, it's even more exciting because AI and automation offer scalability. So automating the grunt work means they can compete for more things. Don't forget the challenges. Everyone talks about the opportunities. There's a lot of new products on the market. There's a lot of startups. Not all startups become Facebook. Most startups' exit strategy is to be purchased, or a lot of them fail. That's not their strategy, but they might be purchased by something big, or they might be, or they might not work out. There seems to be, somebody once said to me from a law firm, how many contract automation tools can one law firm have? They've got to choose. So there are challenges. From a work perspective, connected devices and new developments will bring in work for lawyers. The digital economy raises lots of issues around data ownership, privacy, cybersecurity, IP ownership, as Narushka knows about. We're bringing together different data and tools, create something new. Who does it belong to? For corporations, well, digital enables them to use their data to make money, to sell new things, to provide new services. Again, they have the cyber issues and liability. The other thing is it's changed markets. Like retail is really cool with omni-channel retail, which means you can go into the shop and order something on the internet, or vice versa, order something on the internet and pick it up in the shop, or have it delivered. But it's also getting rid of shops. So automation and digital drives change as well. So law firms, well, that's a topic that I covered in my book. There's multiple opportunities. There's untapped legal markets. There's scalability, which allows big firms to look at maybe smaller markets if they want to, and small firms to spread upwards because they don't need as many people if they've automated more. So when it comes to tech, what people use comes back again to a combination of two things. One Hirsch referred to directly, which is the iPhone. Why do we all buy the iPhone? And it costs more, and it's not a fabulous phone, and all phones have cameras anyway. It's because we want it. We want that phone, and we've connected with it. Part of the thing with chatbots, with there's a lot of been talk about ethics and about anthropomorphization in terms of robots, is because it's to make us like them. Now that's not soft. It's making us like it so that we buy it and use it because we remember what we engage with. So how the legal services are transformed is going to depend on two things. The first one is going to be what catches and engages people, what they want. And the second thing is going to be the next generation of leaders, because all these millennials who are doing things differently, who focus on experience, who rather than property, if you like, they like to buy an experience rather than a thing, for example, which is not all bad until it gets over Instagrammed, and they will use their camera to document their whole life and so on. It's a slightly different approach. So we'll have to see what happens when those people become leaders. The last thing is, you asked me where the limit is. Especially when it comes to online justice, there has to be a limit. And the reason that there has to be a limit is that law is a human endeavor. And you cannot program humanity. So you can program empathy to some extent. You can program something being endearing or likable. But it's very hard to program things in law, like understanding some complexities of the rules, which are the rules of our society. So we don't want those automated, do we? It's worrying. And the other thing is a video that I often show in my presentations about a judge in the United States, where he lets off the person from all their parking fines because he wants to give them a break. Now, they parked in the wrong place, but there was all sorts of reasons around sad things. It was a lady and her son had been killed, and she'd had a lot of bad luck around that, and he gave her a chance. Now, you can't program compassion, and you can't program all interpretations. So there has to be a point at which you segue from the automation to the human factor, because without that we will disengage, and all these automations will fail. Like when you have the telephone thing and it says, press 1 for this, press 2 for that, and you never get a person, and it brings you in a circle. In the end, you don't phone, you go to the internet, you find another way round, or you go, I won't bother with it actually. People have got to bother with it, and I reckon that's a challenge.
Thank you very much, Joanna. That was very deep going already for our first webinar. I think we could spend an entire new webinar on that one. You mentioned the friendly face a chatbot might give to an application, and that leads me directly to Jonathan. Jonathan, may I call you the father of Billy Bot, not Billy the Bot, Billy Bot. And Billy Bot describes itself on the internet as a cheeky chappy who loves to chat. I like this. A cheeky chappy who loves to chat. And not only that, but he's also on Twitter, as I found out yesterday night. He actually retweeted the news about a webinar today. So he's not only cheeky, but he's also a bit friendly, I would say, or at least smart. So Jonathan, would you like to tell us a bit about where you work, why you came up with your son, so to say, how you inspired your son, or what's behind it? I think Billy Bot is very famous in the UK, and not many people, I think in Europe it's new. We knew about it couple of names there. I think he has a girlfriend called Lisa, and there's a whole community now of names, the first generation of legal chatbots, I would call them. The floor is yours. Please tell us a bit about your son.
Indeed. Host, thank you for the introduction. And just so you know, that there's Billy, he joins us. And as you say, he's active on Twitter. He's got over 1,324 followers as of today. And so where did Billy start? Well, Billy started out of the concept of direct access to barristers. That's my passion, delivering barristers and their services for throughout chambers for over 30 years. Myself, and along with Stephen Ward, who is currently in New Zealand talking about our process and system in Australia, we saw an opportunity with the route of direct access through a chatbot. Because we just think it's an intelligent use of artificial intelligence to promote the services of barristers and lawyers. Billy is the world's first AI chatbot junior clerk, and he's had some good press, he's had some difficult moments, but actually he's what Stephen and I were 30 years ago, doing all the little bits in the clerk's room, being a cheeky chappy. And he's developing his own personality. Part of the understanding and the emotional intelligence of the chatbots that we've developed his very own personality. And the way to express that, we find, is through social media. So we've used Twitter quite carefully, and we've placed it, having considered lots and lots of information in relation to how chatbots cooperate and relate to clients. But the passion also comes from the wider access to justice. We heard from, I think it was one of the earlier speakers, about the huge potential legal spend. But the reality is access to justice for all is something across the globe that is a huge opportunity. And we see BillyBot actually playing a huge and significant part in that. So we've got an aim, we've got a strategy, but it's ultimately the passion about ensuring that tomorrow's lawyers, the young bar and the young lawyers that are coming through, actually have a route through to work. And if they don't get involved in that route, they will become, you know, for one reason or another, through the route of the new entrants, forced out of the market. The chatbots and artificial intelligence will create opportunity. And we feel that Billy is giving us all that opportunity in the UK to start with. But just to give you some background, so the growth of AI in the UK and the changing way that we do business, particularly in the legal environment, is at such a rate that Billy is becoming well known for at least having a discussion and directing people through to the right person at the right time. That's the key. So he will, with clever integration moving forward, have lots and lots of routes through to legal advice, free at some stage, if appropriate and necessary. But currently, you know, his API links are doing some clever things like making coffee. Very simple things. And that's part of the brand proposition of Billy, so that people will connect and communicate with him. There is some huge developments with online courts in the UK. We're taking a keen and active part and interest in that process. Why? Because we want to future-proof the element of providing work for lawyers and barristers across the UK and the globe. So Billy, yes, he's a chatbot. He's got clever integration into the Chambers network. And to give you some idea of what he's been achieving, so he will take the inquiries. The clerk typically will input data, and there is a series of process booking in somewhere between 1,500 cases a month through the clerk's room platform. And Billy has meant a saving of over 200 hours a month, increasing operational efficiency. And as a result, the 23 human clerks have had their hours reduced from 42 hours a week to 40, with no reduction in pay. So Billy's actually making life easier, which allows them to do other things that don't necessarily need to be automated. For instance, helping barristers with the allocation of their work that they typically want to do. And also, although the details are on an NDA from the 1st December, Billy, through the clever technology, has secured law firm to automate all their cases on a national scale on the basis that we're providing that route through to work. So yeah, the brand proposition is clear. It's driving the route through client engagement. That's the key. And for legal service business, which again, the Chambers route would struggle in the current market. So it's about future-proofing that route. The passion comes through the delivery of service, typically from the end user, the barrister. But Billy is the intermediary, if you like, communicating with clients. That engagement, as Joanna has very kindly suggested, is disruptive, yes, it's innovative. People would prefer to discuss and chat things through with Billy. It's quite staggering. And yes, he's had a bit of a relationship, or he is, with Lisa through Chrissy Lightfoot. And again, that's about the brand proposition, so that people start to understand there's a human element, or there's some human intelligence to the way that he operates. So is it that simple? No, it's not. There's been a lot of hard work behind the scenes. But clearly, we are touching some nerves in relation to the automation of what I was typically doing as a junior clerk some 25, 30 years ago. But there is no doubt that automation will prove to be effective moving forward for a truly, route of service for clients. That's ultimately aim. I'm hoping that's captured the mood of where we are with Billy.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. One question from my side, just to be very precise: what is Billy able to do just now, and what is your? You almost talked. I think there was a certain pride in your voice when you said he is like I was 10 years ago, or at the beginning of my legal training. What do you think is the potential? Let's say if you look down the road a couple of years, let's say 5 years. What do you want him to achieve? What do you think is realistic? A chatbot like Billy can achieve.
Yes. We started off with Billy, as I say, from him becoming the face of our public access route for barristers to assist that process. Billy is now being retrained or redeveloped under IBM Watson. Why? Well, because, as you say, we see the opportunity for the route of the provision of service through barristers and lawyers globally. That's the aim. That's part of our strategy. And what we are currently doing is reaching out, such as seminars that we're doing, like yourself, with webinars across the globe, for information gathering to collect people's thoughts and routes in relation to whether they thought it would be appropriate for someone like a chatbot to have that route to market. And it clearly does. We've been invited to platforms and discussions across the globe. As I say, Stephen's been invited in New Zealand, where he's on holiday, to talk to the law societies out there about the automation which allows clients, again, to have this wider access to justice. If they want to seek advice and they are happy to take some cheap, easy advice at the first instance, rather than putting the matter off, then if it's through a chatbot, which is called Billy, then that's wonderful. And ultimately, that opportunity is coming quicker than we quite thought, generally. So we are trying to pace ourselves. 2018 is an exciting year for us for lots of reasons. But, you know, on a day-to-day, you know, he's processing cases. He's taking some of the churn out of that work that was currently done. It's automating it. And yes, we've got some clever opportunities moving forward to link into those sorts of things that we want to get involved in with online courts and that provision of service for everybody.
Hello, there we are again. Thank you very much, Jonathan. I'm just trying to find out if we have questions from people watching in. We have Dr. Gerold Ziegenhorn. I'm not quite sure if he's actually there. He said he would be present to have a question to the panel. Gero, are you there somewhere? No. No, blank. So nobody on this line. So okay, we don't have any other questions. People dialing in? No, currently. Okay, so let's just check. No, good. Adnan, do you have a question?
Hello.
Gero, there he
Yes.
is.
Hi. Sorry, I had some trouble with the microphone. So can everybody hear me?
Yes, 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 we hear you.
I actually have a question to Jonathan. I was very excited to hear him talk about Billy. Me personally, I haven't experienced Billy yet. I will try out now as soon as possible. But since I haven't, could you explain what Billy actually does in these conversations? You said that the aim is that he will direct people to the right legal advisors. So what would he do in a conversation, or would he start trying to give legal advice also, or is that the aim? Or
Can you hear me, folks?
Sorry, Gero, can you repeat the question? I think it was to Jonathan, right? But
yes.
We're not sure if it arrived at Jonathan's ear.
Okay.
So, if you can repeat it loudly and clearly, and then maybe we come up with an answer.
I have the question. That's fine.
Okay, great.
Yes. Yeah. So the question was really, what is he currently doing? Well, if you click onto www.billybot.co.uk, what he will do, he will ask you a series of questions. So if you're seeking legal advice, some very basic things about the particular case or where you find yourself, and he will typically direct you through a simple tree decision. Do you have a case for a hearing? What's the date, for instance? But he's doing some other little bits as well. So he'll have a joke with you if you want to ask him a joke, or some simple things, or he'll search for somebody on LinkedIn. So it is very basic at this level. It's developing on a week and a monthly basis. But if you were seeking representation, for instance, from a lawyer for a date that's specific to a hearing, he will help you choose across the UK one of 6,000 barristers and provide you with a choice. He'll provide you with a range of fees subject to your budget or your practice area. And then ultimately, the decision is with the client to say yes or no, or to pay now. Along that route, there are some elements of some free advice through a service provider we use called Law Donut, which is quite bespoke. But it's a clever introduction of elements of free advice where appropriate.
Thank you very much. May I ask another question?
Yes, please go ahead.
The other question that would be sort of disruptive question, because we've been speaking about that it's, of course, and personally, I think this really, I really endorse this idea that it's, of course, the aim is inter alia access to justice for all. Now, the disruptive question would be, what are the chances and risks for larger law firms behind bot technology? Can you think of a field where bots could be used for larger law firms, not for people on the street seeking legal advice, but maybe enterprises, groups of companies, and so on?
Jonathan, understood? Question? No?
Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I think there's lots of opportunity. we have lots of engagement with law firms across the UK and across other jurisdictions as to what they're considering developing. But currently, we seem to be the only one in the fashion that we're at. And why I think there's less risk for us currently. When you've got a big law firm, they have chatbots on the screen or a dialogue, but it's quite restricted. We're not restricted by that. We're out having fun with him, and we just get on with it. We don't have huge committees to decide whether we can do these things or not. But I think there is a big opportunity for the smaller law firm to participate. And there are some firms that are developing some clever bits and bobs which are helping drive online traffic, that next generation of instruction and that conversion through some clever technology. And that's what Billy's helping us to do. That brand awareness about a route through to a barrister or a lawyer online, where we know that next generation of people will be.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll try to get some insight from the panel again as a whole. Maybe we go one by one. We receive many questions from young students. All this happening, you know, opportunities somewhere, risks. What am I supposed to do? What I've seen now, for example, in Germany, you have a couple of universities like Munich, Frankfurt, Hamburg. You have legal labs popping up all over the place, people organizing themselves, you know, taking an interest in the subject and asking, what can I do? I mean, put it in a challenging way. If the Billy bots of this world do the groundwork, who will train? You know, where can I train to become a lawyer? So that's the feeling we get from many people. They like the opportunities. At the same time, they're a bit uncertain. What will happen? What be your advice? You're all working on this to young students, let's say, at university now, entering into the professional world, legal world, or at the beginning deciding, you know, should I take law as my university subject? How to brace yourself? What can I do as a young lawyer to get ready for the brave new world of law and technology? Hirsch, would you like to start?
Sure, thanks. I you know, being at a university, we think about this a lot, and I speak to a lot of law schools right across the country. And you know, always I start talking in my talks. I do a lot of legal innovation and the impacts of technology. And then you see them starting to squirm like, oh my God, what am I doing sitting in this law school class? Have I just wasted all this money? But then I quickly turn it to the opportunities. And it's both the opportunities, and just to take one step back, actually, Ryerson just put in a proposal to set up a law school. So we put a lot of thought into this. And we truly believe that there is a great opportunity for future young lawyers, especially if they are trained differently. Because in the past, when you were a young lawyer coming out, it was very, very, very difficult to create a market for yourself, especially when you're competing against some of the elder lawyers out there, the senior partners who it was all based on relationships. Those partners were never going to be losing many of their clients. And so what we try and focus on at the Legal Innovation Zone is talking about the opportunity that these young students coming out, they were born with that iPhone that you're holding up there. Where none of us on this call were ever born with that iPhone. They were born with the knowledge that the technologies that they use today are going to change 6 months ago. And so they are very comfortable with change and how that technology can make a difference. And so when we talk about the future lawyer, we see a very bright future if they're trained differently, because I would assume in all of your countries, in all of your universities, most of the universities are teaching it very similar to the lawyers that came out 10, 15, 20, even 50 years ago. And so if they're gaining those different business skills that were never focused on, if they're gaining some tech skills, some business transformation skills, along with their legal skills, we think that they have a great ability to challenge even those more senior lawyers and open up different markets that were ever there.
Thank you very much, Hirsch. And Irushka, I know you're closely following on this and working on this skilling up training programs yourself. What is your recommendation? How shall the new generation of young lawyers be trained then, as Hirsch suggested? Well, what is your insight there?
So I definitely think there is the opportunity to create more structure in terms of, you know, learning courses or courses that are tailored to suit young lawyers or lawyers who want to upskill in technology and legal tech and innovation. But even without those structured programs, if you just look at the amount of freely available online resources that we have today over the internet, it's just amazing. No matter where you are in the world, if you have access to the internet, you can upskill yourself if you you know, take the initiative to do so. There's also loads of things you can read online if you follow the right people who are talking about these things to kind of keep yourself up to date and relevant as to what's going on in the market. So there is a lot that you can do yourself without being part of a structured program, but I definitely think a structured program is beneficial. And the other thing is that there actually is just more opportunities in law rather than, you know, law ending or, you know, not having a place for lawyers anymore in the future. And it's more about lawyers working with technology rather than technology replacing lawyers. And I think that's the narrative that needs to become more pronounced in the next year, because, you know, we often see the headlines of robots and everybody is going to take over the lawyer jobs and we're not going to have lawyers anymore. But we need to say, actually, it's not that. Your role may be a slightly different, or maybe do it in a bit different way. And if you don't upskill yourself, yes, then maybe you might make yourself irrelevant. And that's a risk that you will take if you keep doing things as you always have done them. And the other thing, to come back to the rate of change, with emerging technologies especially, you know, we have something called exponential growth, where yesterday maybe 5 people knew about it, and tomorrow, you know, everybody is talking about it, because it's not like when we had other technologies in the past, like motor vehicles and landline telephones, which took almost decades to reach full adoption. You know, an app like Pokemon Go took a weekend to reach the same number of users of Twitter. So it's crazy when we think about things at that speed of adoption, but also the younger lawyers have grown up used to that fast-paced change, and they don't want to wait 20 years to become an expert in a field of law. And with emerging tech, you can actually become an expert in a matter of a year or a month, or depending on how long the technology actually existed. If you're just the person who's read the most and done the most research, you can position yourself in that space. So it creates huge opportunities for anybody who's willing to put in that effort. So definitely not a bad thing to be studying law right now.
Thank you. We have a question coming in live from Gibran. Bonjour, Gibran from Paris. He's asking, what do you think that this digital transformation will actually mean for the business model of law firms, of lawyers? So in the short term or in the more long term, will the billing hour model survive, or will this be totally obsolete, basically changed by this technology at all? Is there anybody? Maybe you're not. Then I can switch the micro. Who has a view on that one? It's a tricky one. I think it's a business model discussion. I think there are a couple of it depends a bit whom you ask, from a law firm or from a new startup. But is anybody there who wants to comment on Gibran's question? Now I can't see anybody nodding. So, Joanna, do you have any idea from what you've seen in the UK? Nerushka, sorry, you're first. You're first. Now I've seen your hand. Sorry, we're working here with live technology. So Nerushka first, please. Thank you.
Okay. So this is one of the areas that, you know, when it comes to the business model of law, that I'm the most interested in, I would say that. And it's because what I've seen and what I've experienced a number of times, no matter which angle you go at or what you're pitching, everything comes back to the core business model of a law firm, which is the billable hour. What tech and innovation is trying to propose is creating efficiencies, automating processes, making things quicker, more efficient, and you know, great for the end user. But if you look at how somebody's incentivized or motivated to work, if they're being told the more hours you work, you know, the more likely you're going to be promoted, the bigger your bonus is going to be. It's very hard to change that incentive without disrupting the actual business model of law. And you know, one driver, of course, is from the client side, and we will see change from the client side. But until it moves from a time-based model more towards a value-based model or more commoditized and a different method of pricing, I don't see dramatic change occurring in a traditional law firm environment if they tie back to the traditional billable model.
Jonah, would you like to comment as well on that one?
Yes, please. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfectly well.
Well, the first thing is, in theory, it should change the business model. In theory, artificial intelligence that speeds things up a million times should change the business model, because how can you charge per hour for something that takes 30 seconds that used to take 2 weeks? You can't actually charge by time for that unless you want to charge them 5p in English money, and I don't think they're going to do that, or like a very small cent of a euro. It's not going to happen. And the other thing is, it's not fair, because technology requires investment, and clever technology like artificial intelligence, like Billy, who is a very clever boy, requires an investment of resource, of time, of skill, and also of money. So the pricing model will have to be different for the services that are driven by technology. Client expectations too. They'll go, if you're doing this in 30 seconds, how can you charge us for 5 hours? We could buy the technology ourselves, which some of them are doing. And insurance companies use AI technology for automating predictions, for automating their cases, case management, in the same way as law firms do. When it comes to the billable hour, it's not going to go away unless it's for commoditized services. The big, highly skilled people will carry on charging the way they want to because they can. It's going to affect a particular part of the market where they are going to have to think about how they charge for either services that are self-service, so you go, well, like branded contracts. So the machine is building it, but there is a bespoke element. So you have to price up the different elements. And then the other side is when things are automated at the back end, if you can do it really fast, how you have to work out how to price it, determined by a lot of different factors. And there also has to be some more standardization in law firms, which they're working towards, I think. So that's my sort of take on that.
Okay, thank you. Hirsch, you're a business model guy yourself, a startup guy. Do you have any ideas? Let me just put it bluntly. A law firm has no interest in billing less hours currently. I mean, why should I use a bot? Why should I use, maybe I save some costs in paying employees, the cost, we mentioned the cost saving element, but as a whole, we live in a crazy world. A crazy business model means the more you bill, the more you can put on the invoice. Why should anybody with this mindset go to a legal innovation zone and say, okay, Harsh, we've got an interesting topic here. Would you like to help us making this service more lean, more efficient?
Yeah, so you know, the business model is something that clearly all of us on the call spend a lot of time thinking about. I would say, why is it in the interest of law firms? I think because the progressive, smarter law firms, and just this week, we were talking to one of the world's largest law firms. I mean, they realize that change is coming. They realize that they have a unique opportunity to lead that change, and that innovation and technology has to be part of it. And so the leaders that we talk to, the time of use billing is a big issue. The business model internally at law firms is very difficult. There's not one silver bullet that's going to fix all that. But the fact is, many of them from their biggest clients are being asked to bill things in a different way, and it's not all based on hourly billing. It's based on, you know, giving one sum, using a lot of innovative tools to figure out how you're coming up with that. So maybe in the back end, you'll probably always have lawyers tracking their hours and all that. But when they're starting to hand bills to clients and answering RFPs, Microsoft actually had a great process. It was I think 3 years ago now, where they basically put out an RFP for a massive contract, which they knew they were doing over and over again, and had law firms answer it. And it's a great case study. I could forward it to people if they're interested, which now is totally not based on the hourly bill. That being said, you know, I spoke to a law firm 6 months ago, and a person raised his hand and said, when I said the hourly bill is going to die, he said, I've heard people say that till 1983. And my answer to that is, you're right. I have no clue if it's going to change in 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years. But I promise you, the people who are not convinced that it's going to change are not going to be the ones that are going to ride this legal innovative wave. And they're going to be the ones that fall behind. And so the top law firms, they are thinking about new ways to build, and the change is going to come from the customers. It's going to be, you know, the big telecoms, the banks who go to these top-end law firms and say, we need a different way to get these bills and to do the services, because we need you to rely on the innovation and technology.
Okay, thank you very much, Hirsch. We heard this a lot, that actually the driver is more from the corporate side. Adnan, you have a question there as well?
Adnan, can you unmute yourself?
Am I all right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm terribly sorry. Well, what I was saying is that I have many questions, and but I'm not sure we have enough time to go through them. But
we have 15 minutes, Adnan. So
we have less than almost 12 minutes. But the thing which really concerns me is not knowing, as a lawyer, not knowing what's there in the market in terms of technology which has a direct or possibly indirect impact on the legal services, whether in the private sector or the public sector. I mean, we see, for instance, the automation of many activities at the public sector. For instance, with courts, you just send your writs or you send your submissions to the court through the internet, and it seems to be in certain jurisdictions where they have the know-how is working. But let me just broaden what concerns me is in terms of technology. I feel, and I might not be right here, I feel there are two categories of technology sometimes are mixed up. There is the technology which is the information technology which assists in automating information and producing something which is done by the, let's call them the second layer of lawyers, like the associates and senior associates, and the very little kind of thinking, the research, and that kind of thing. And then on the other side, we have a more dangerous, as Joanna already kind of indicated, and I'm not sure I agree with her, but nevertheless, I mean, there's the dangerous part of the technology is the artificial intelligence, and we don't know where it's leading. And there are, of course, the proponents and those who disagree that artificial intelligence should be left limitless. Now, Joanna mentioned in those terms that she said that there is a problem with artificial intelligence in terms of that we take away the empathy and sympathy from and try to give it to the machine, and machines are not able to somehow imitate humans. And she gave the example of the lady who was caught. She has so many parking tickets, and the judge made according to her circumstances, made a kind of a decision to let her go. And if this was something programmed into machine, this might not have happened. But we know for a fact that in law, these are not the only legal kind of issues which arise in different subjects of the law. For instance, if you take a pure commercial, big commercial case, which goes to the court, and the case itself has nothing to do with empathy, it has to do with facts. What are the facts and in whose favor the facts are? It doesn't matter whether the judge has an empathy for one party, or actually it is a disadvantage, because the attitude the parties play or the barristers play may influence the judges or the court's approach to the case, even though the facts might be, and I've been through many of these cases, might be in favor of the other side. And therefore, what the fear that we will take the human factor out of the law by introducing artificial intelligence is something which really needs to be looked at more carefully, because we look at the law as a criminal law. Law is not only criminal law; it's commercial, and there's so many other branches. And therefore I'm not convinced that this is an argument which we should kind of leave without debating very, very seriously. And I'm very convinced that, from my experience, that many of our human biases and errors, which somehow translate into our in the way we deal with cases which are fact dependent, can be eliminated, and we could get into a much better decisions and judgments in these areas. Therefore, I should stop here. But this is one thing which I am very concerned about, and I think there is a very there is this fear of as if the technology is going to take jobs. Yes, it has to take jobs. This is technology, and this is how we progress and how paradigms happen. And then it happened in agricultural revolution, it happened in the industrial revolution. Now we live in the technological revolution, and there are consequences, but there's consequences. We cannot keep the status quo and say, well, this might affect the labor. Of course, it will affect the labor market. We see it already in other branches, in banking. We see it in insurance, the insurance field, but the impact here on jobs are not due to artificial intelligence per se, but they're due to the automation of all the what people spend days doing. Anyway, I'll stop there, and I would really love to hear the comments of our speakers.
Good. So can we have a final statement of each of you about, basically, in a nutshell, Adnan's topic? This is going to come anyway. There are some concerns. Joanna raised them. The empathy concern. What do you see? What do you see coming? Is there any way we can correct? We can cope with these concerns? Anything we can do, or how? Coming back to our discussion earlier on, what can the current generation do? Basically, knowing there is something coming, being automated, being the digital move, but with some risks and opportunities. How can we brace ourselves? Again.
Okay, starting with me again. Always pressure. I'll just keep it quick and high level. I would just, very high level say, I'm not saying anything new, but we always and often overstate technology in the near term and understate it in the long term. I think there is a lot of great possibilities, and I think most of all we should focus. I mean, it's going to change a lot of businesses, but the access to justice, the fact that so many people do not have any access to legal services, I think technology will help solve a lot of those issues. And so, yeah, when it comes to the AI, I think in the near term, everyone's looking for these great solutions that might not be there today, but I think it's going to be able to do a lot more in the future than what we're thinking about right now. And yeah, it's very, very exciting times, I think, for everyone, especially the younger people coming into the law, because they have so many tools at their disposal to make a real difference.
Thank you. Nirushka, can you tell us 3 things a young student can do today to prepare himself or herself for the new situation, for the new world of legal tech?
So I actually had this conversation this morning with a student that I'm currently mentoring who is at university, and she did come to me and say, she's hearing all these things about law, and should she join a big law firm or a small law firm, and should she learn to code, and what should she do? Will she have a job? Quite stressed based on all these things that she's hearing about the fraternity. And what I said to her is, look at it as an opportunity, because so many people lack access to justice. If you do want to help people, find a way to do it that's better than the way we do it today. And I think that's what the opportunity is. There's so many unserviced markets. It's, I think somebody mentioned a number earlier, 1 trillion. But that's just the people who are currently paying for services. What about all those people who are not paying because it's just completely unaffordable? Find a way to bridge that gap. And if you're a young lawyer, I would say that should be your pathway. Choose what's relevant to you, what you're passionate about, and what motivates you, and follow that.
Okay. Father of Billy Bot. Sorry, this is my running thread today. Jonathan, do you have any comments?
Yes.
For people to engage with the new world of chatbot interfaces with a friendly face.
Thank you. Just very quickly to round up, a huge thank you to you all. But clearly, from our perspective, and Billy, what we find is that people, there are whole generations of people who put off from seeking legal advice because of cost. They want cost predictability, they want fixed fees. And if there's a route through that, through artificial intelligence with chatbots, then ultimately you and I and the experts will not make that decision. The clients will, and they are. It's really straightforward. So if you're a young lawyer, then yes, get involved. That's my advice. Take interest. There is massive opportunity, absolutely huge. And it's a really, really exciting time.
Joanna, you have the final word, summing it all up. What is your final comment you'd like to make on the discussion today?
Wow.
Of motivating people to read your new book as well.
No, that's it would be nice if they did, but that's not how I sum up. First, I just want to say thank you to you all for including me. I'm really flattered to be in a discussion with such eminent colleagues. I think with AI and all those things, despite the concerns, it's like water. It will find its level. It's like the Industrial Revolution, people talking about jobs and say what will happen to our job. Well, I always people refer to lots of cool things like the iPhone camera, but the thing that changed our lives beyond recognition was the washing machine. Before there was a washing machine, you had to have either someone come in and do it for you, so you had a washerwoman, or you had to have laundry day where you spent the whole day doing your washing. Now there's not, nobody's going to say now, oh, the washerwoman's job is gone. I really, really wanted to be one of those. So where there's going to be some jobs that are going to be redundant, some of the repetitive jobs, which are not always exactly the same, but they are repetitive in what they do. There will also be new jobs in technology, and there will be new jobs managing the outputs of technology. So the young lawyers will just have to be trained slightly differently. So instead of going through thousands of documents, they'll work with the outputs of technology that will already be there when they join. Like email, you know, everybody uses email, it's ubiquitous. It's changed our lives in a bad way, but everybody uses it, even people who were there pre-Google. We don't go, actually, I remember when there wasn't email, which I do, so I'm going to send a letter. It's not what we do. So I think there's loads of opportunities for young people. I work with Westminster University Law School in London, and we work on the interface between law and technology. And the students are queuing up for the events and the courses. And my colleague, Dr. Parish Kethrani, uses virtual reality to teach criminal law with a virtual court. So it's used in teaching too. So when the next generation come out, they are tech savvy and they are tech interested. Ultimately, what the law school is there to do is to teach them to be a lawyer, but they're not ignoring the tech, and they shouldn't either. And there's opportunities for entrepreneurs, there's opportunities in startups, there's opportunities for techie people, techie lawyers to be legal engineers, there's opportunities to work with online justice and chatbots. So it's a different career, but it's possibly a better one, if you like, in lots of ways. So I think it's an interesting, we live in interesting times and we should make the most of them.
Thank you very much, everybody, for being part of today's international webinar. Special thanks to the very modest Sana as well, who's been our art director behind the scenes today, saving me from the heart attack. I'm amazed again that this is possible today by technology. Please, everybody listening in, stay tuned for the next webinar we're going to have during the year. Thank you also for the listeners and people watching us, sending in their yeah, have a good evening today. It's getting dark here in Brussels, and hope to speak to you soon. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, everybody.
Thank you.